All right. For a brief moment around 4 a.m. this morning, the Strait of Hormuz opened. Let's watch the video. They start crossing. I can confirm I was watching, tracking the activity then, and Hormuz was active. No good thing lasts forever. Breaking. IRC Navy is publicly calling Iran's Foreign Minister Arachi an idiot on International Maritime Channel 16, broadcasting that the Strait of Hormuz is still closed and we will open it by the order of our leader, Imam Khamenei, not by the tweets of some idiot. Yep, so Strait of Hormuz aren't open. I said I didn't believe any of Trump's tweets yesterday, and none of them ended up being true.
We have very good conversations going on. It's working out very well. They got a little cute, as they have been doing for 47 years. Nobody ever took them on. We took them on. They have no Navy. They have no Air Force. They have no leaders. They have no nothing. Actually, their leaders are, it is regime.
On no Air Force, the Iranians still have actual fighter jets. Must be keeping them on the ground somewhere. Because when Pakistani general went over a visit, he got a fighter jet escort, his plane coming in.
Regime change. You call that enforced regime change. But we're talking to them.
These aren't the most advanced fighter jets. These aren't fighter jets that can go toe-to-toe with our planes, but they are still fighter jets.
Wanted to close up the Strait again, as they've been doing for years. And they can't blackmail us. Well, and we'll see. But we'll have some information by the end of the day. We're talking to them.
Yeah, we'll have some information by the end of the day. Some weird stuff in there. I mean, we just got to say, and unfortunately, that seems to be a common theme nearly every time we talk about anybody that's talking from the American side. And as you're going to see in this episode here, there's a lot of back and forth and confusing, even contradictory statements coming not just by the president, but by the policymakers in our country. And let's look at the first, because it's always important to actually take a listen to what he said. As we always claim, listen to what people say, listen to what the Americans say, listen to what the Israelis say, listen to what the Iranians say, and then look on the ground and see how does that line up with what's said. That's critical to do. One of the things President Trump said there was, they've been trying to kill us for 47 years. They have not been trying to kill us for 47 years. They have not been trying to pursue a bomb for 47 years, which is the claim that many people keep making. I mean, this backs up even before all this. And you got to understand, you got to get a running start to understand how the Iranians think about this, because that has everything to do with how their actions are going to be now. If you want to know how they're going to react to a certain thing, you got to understand their mentality, their history, and their culture. And then imagine whatever you want to do, how is that going to react? Because the purpose is supposed to be, let's do things that is going to be able to result in something that's beneficial to our side. I mean, that's what every country is supposed to do. Any of their international relations is supposed to have something that results in something beneficial to them, whatever it is, whatever the topic is. And when you say, well, they've been trying to kill us for 47 years, now, I understand that part of this is because we want to paint them as evil and wicked. And so that way our public...
Any state that doesn't bow to U.S. hegemony is targeted like that, is painted as a villain. North Korea, Russia, Iran, China, they're painted as the enemy. So to justify sanction against them, to justify military action against them, to try to regime change them. So it's like Venezuela, like Cuba. They're not, integrated in our system, busy buying U.S. treasuries and propping up the dollar, then they're the enemy.
Supports us doing things that on the surface would seem to be quite illegal and immoral even, and unhelpful. And that's the case here, because, look, this backs up to the 1953 coup.
It should have been obvious. When the Trump said yesterday, tweet that, they're opening the straits, but we're going to keep our blockade. No way that was going to fly. That made absolutely no sense. If we're blockading them, they'll close the straits, obviously.
About the CIA, where we unseated the legal, properly elected government of Iran because they weren't doing what we wanted with oil. So we had a coup to unseat them. We put in the Shah of Iran, our selected guy, because he was very friendly to Western oil, U.S. and British in particular. And then, of course, the Iranians in 1979 had their revolution. The next year, we started supporting Iraq in their what turned out to be an 8-year war against Iran, in which 300,000 to 500,000 Iranians were killed.
Yep.
Probably something close to 1 million were wounded, devastated their country for a couple of decades at a minimum. That's what they remember. So now then, when you see, fast forward to the claim that they often bring up here in the White House.
So we installed a puppet, the Shah of Iran, and he governed brutally, secret police, torture, etc. Then when he was overthrown, We convinced our proxy, Saddam Hussein, to attack Iran, and more deaths and destruction in Iran. So, yeah, there's a reason they don't like us.
That they helped some of the Shia militia in the Iraq War, the U.S. Iraq War in the 2003 to 2008 time period. And they helped us with EFPs. It's a type of roadside bomb that's really effective. And they allegedly killed 600 Americans. Obviously, as a former service member myself who served in Iraq during that time at the end of it in 2009, I'm obviously against any of that. One American died. I think it's awful. But it was a war. And we have to understand that we just helped for 8 years, killed hundreds of thousands of Iranians. Now, why would they not want to do the same? And it wasn't even.
We helped Saddam Hussein use chemical weapons on Iran against the Iranians. Killed hundreds of thousands that way.
Iran per se, it was the Iraqi Shia militia that we were in a war with, and they got help from their parent company or from their allied country in the region. Just like we're doing with Ukraine against Russia today. We still keep doing that for 4+ years. So it's a little bit weird and stupid. I'm just going to call it like it is. It's stupid to point this bony finger at Iran. How dare they have done this? And because they did, they deserve to die. And that's why we're doing this. Because you realize you're making the logic for Russia to do the same to us. Because we've done it profoundly more against them than they're doing to us. You understand what I'm saying? We have to understand how all of this is fit together and be honest about it.
And yes, Russia is doing it to us via Iran. They're definitely propping up Iran, giving them weapons. So as payback for what we did in Ukraine.
And there's not any honesty right there. Now, President Trump said at the end of that little clip there's going to be something that he's going to announce tonight. I don't know what it is. I don't know if that. I originally thought maybe there was going to be some kind of comment that there's going to be another round of negotiations, but things are happening today which seem to undermine that. Around the same time that he was talking, in fact, there's news popping out that Iranian gunboats have fired on tankers in the Strait of Hormuz, and then now they're.
And remember, according to Trump, Iran doesn't even have a navy anymore. These are imaginary ships shooting at tankers.
Saying that it's closed again. They released some information on their media state. They said Iran agreed to allow a limited number of ships to pass through the Strait of Hormuz according to agreements. And that's what we showed you from Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi yesterday. He said, yes, we're going to open the straits according to the ceasefire terms that we agreed to with. And then the media continues on and says, but the U.S. did not fulfill their obligations. So the Strait of Hormuz is now closed again, and passage requires Iranian approval. So you see, that was the whole issue, even that Abbas Araghchi said. And then I showed you later in the day to where the IRGC spokesman clarified that. So there are 3 conditions. And one of the first ones, the absolute first one he listed on there was, this is an all or nothing deal. Either the American blockade comes down and our blockade comes down, or neither one of them come down. And now then President Trump boasted on Truth Social around that same time yesterday that only the Iranian side would come down and ours didn't. So, I mean, that already just sabotaged anything right there.
Yep. It was insane. It's stupid even. Trump's been trying to get the Strait of Hormuz open for weeks. And then when they finally agree, he decides to keep on the blockade of Iranian ships and think they're going to go along with that. That was just pure stupidity on Trump's part, if he actually thought that.
I mean, upon what logic would anyone say we want to get the flow of oil open to the Strait of Hormuz? We want things to start happening in a good way. And so we're going to ask the Iranian side unilaterally to stop blocking the Strait of Hormuz while I'm going to keep mine in place so they'll be harmed. I mean, who would do that? I mean, you can't ask a major give from another side in a negotiation when they have some control and leverage without giving them something in return. And the obvious and the easiest thing in the world for President Trump to have done was just say, sure, our blockade is now open too. But for some reason, he didn't do it. I mean, one can speculate, was this an intention to try and make the Iranian side look bad? There's nothing to make it look bad in American eyes, because there's not many American, I've been looking on major mainstream media today, not many people are saying President Trump asked Iran to open the strait while he himself kept it closed. And then they said, well, we're not going to do that. There wasn't any comment. That only the headline that Iran, first of all, says they're going to open Strait. Now all of a sudden they're not going to. Now they shut it down. And now apparently they have attacked some ships in the region. We'll see how that continues to work out. Sean Bell.
And this honestly is Araghchi's fault. In his tweet or saying they opened the Strait of Hormuz, he should have said contingent on U.S. stopping its blockade. He should have said that in his tweet. Failing to do that, he just was bad on his part.
From Sky News this morning was talking about that issue. And then he also mentioned something else that additionally, the Iran leader, Mojtaba Khamenei, also said today.
The supreme leader, who we haven't heard very much from, now posting on Telegram that Iran's navy is going to be inflicting bitter defeats on its enemies. What's militarily, how does this feel to you? Does this feel like a significant escalation?
Well, the short answer is no. And the danger of saying that when there's gunfire and everything may mislead people. But by context, I mean, the Strait of Hormuz was closed by the Iranians, then America's trying to open it, then Iran's opened it, and America is sort of still closing it, because the Iranians have said the blockade that America has in place really isn't part of the deal. And therefore, when it was open, we were seeing a flow of traffic around the Strait of Hormuz, this live tracker, which we've regularly been following. But of course, when, as you say, the Iranians said it was going to be closed, you're now the Iranians. You've actually seen now quite a lot of this traffic moving around. The green is cargo, the red is oil tankers. And therefore, you want to stop that traffic. Now, the way to do it, rather than just say something, some of these vessels are really big. They've got a lot of momentum, $100 million worth of oil.
You can't turn around.
You can't just turn them around quickly. Some of the vessels can, but some of them can't. And therefore, you've got to make sure that you believe there's a credible action. Now, there's lots of different reports coming out, but the common ground at the moment is that one vessel has reported that 2 IRGC gunboats opened fire and potentially hit the ship. Now, that in itself, if they were genuinely serious about taking down shipping, you'd have anti-ship missiles and all sorts of other things. This feels much more like a very overt threat that we are serious, so that vessels that are on their way through just get out of the way. Any other vessels turn around, and we're already seeing evidence of that happening. The fact that Mushtaba Khamenei has also turned around and said, our Navy, that was destroyed.
Yeah. Rather than radioing, the strait is closed, firing bullets, can hear that for miles. It's an effective way too.
In other words, it's not destroyed,
Yes.
will wreak havoc. I think all of that is still all about positioning for the potential for peace talks.
Yeah, well, Sean Bell's a little more optimistic there than
Yeah.
I think conditions warrant, that all of these things are set up for peace talks. And who knows, maybe that's what President Trump is going to talk about tonight. Maybe he's going to say, yes, there is. Tune in here if that does happen. We'll certainly be on top of that if that's the case. But let's look at what's happened there. That one of the other things he said there at the last is also really important, because you had the Supreme Leader, at least a statement ascribed to him. He's still not been seen in public. He's not been seen even in video.
By the way, this U.S. prepares to board Iran-linked ships globally following Iranian gunboat attack on tanker in Hormuz. So that's what Trump's, wild response has been so far. We'll just go after any Iranian ships worldwide, and not only is that hard to do, but yeah, it would create all other types of problems.
So maybe it's him, maybe it's not, maybe it's somebody controlled. It doesn't really matter. That's what the Iranian government is putting out. So just a kind of a caveat there. But the point is that our Navy is going to inflict a defeat. Now, you've heard President Trump, and I think he even did in that soundbite I showed a minute ago. Again, said the same thing. He says so many times, their Navy has been destroyed, their air defense has been destroyed, aircraft has been, all this stuff. Well, now then they demonstrated physically that it has not, because they sent those attack boats that I keep telling you over and over. There's potentially up to 3,000 of those things hidden away in all kinds of bunkers and underground facilities that are adjacent to the water. And now here they have brought a couple out to demonstrate how viable they are. And again, it is so crucial to understand. I think I do agree with Sean Bell in that last part, where he said, I don't think this was an attempt to destroy the ships, because we've seen they did that in the opening rounds. And,
yeah, if they wanted them destroyed, they would have destroyed them. This was just wanted to shut down the Strait of Hormuz.
Catastrophic fires that we've seen, some at night that were really dramatic, some in the daylight, big plumes of smoke. That's what they do if they want to destroy it. But if they just attacked some with some of these boats, and of course these boats have anti-ship missiles on them, so they could have used those boats to destroy the shipping. But I think that is more likely the case that they just want to demonstrate we can do that, turn back around.
Yep.
And they're wanting to tell everybody, to include anyone in the White House, we're in control of the Strait of Hormuz. Now, this by itself is a big problem for the United States. Trump thinks he can talk his way out of this stuff, because he's talked his way out of everything in the world up to this point. Now we finally, I think, have gotten to that point that I keep warning about so many times and for so many years, that when spin comes face to face with reality, reality will win every time. Once you get to the point, you can talk and you can massage and whatever while you're out here before you reach that point.
I've said that too. Trump is trying to make believe a world where he's won the Iran war, and he's been trying to do that for the last 7 weeks. But he can only make believe for so long. Reality will come in.
But at some point, there's going to come that moment to when you can't talk your way out of it. And I think we're at that point now with Iran. And they're demonstrating with physical action, we're in control of this, and you're going to have to submit to our terms, or you're going to have to give us terms anyway that we can live with. And they're pretty, it's a pretty high level, or we're going to keep control of it. Now, this is where it gets troubling, because there is a clock ticking. Or more accurately, maybe there is a financial time clock that is adding up costs.
Every day the Strait of Hormuz remains closed, the global economy is one day closer to disaster.
To the United States. And that is not in the United States, but to the whole world. And that's something that this former Qatari intelligence official in frustration talked about earlier today.
Even late last night here in Qatar and in the GCC, the fact that the so-called opened but controlled strait was unclear, and anything that is this vital and this murky in its an explanation, it shouldn't surprise us if it changes again and multiple times. The only hope is really for the US and Iran to sit down and have serious negotiations, because this is, while a welcomed ceasefire, it clearly is not achieving its goals yet, and we're running out of time.
Yeah, we're running out of time. No goals have been achieved because President Trump keeps moving the goalpost and just shifting them all over the place to where nobody knows what is the objective. What are we trying to accomplish? What are we trying to even get to?
Okay, I can answer that very simply. Trump is trying to politically survive. He's trying to get a victory that American people will accept in a way that doesn't make him look like a loser, because his entire persona can't handle that. And if he comes out of this war a loser after the damage it's done and is doing to the U.S. economy, that is going to finish him politically. So Trump is looking for his victory, like that captain hunting Moby Dick. No chance of actually succeeding.
To how are we going to get this open? Because so far, and you're going to see some more examples here in just a few minutes, some from today, some from last night, Trump still wants to try to talk his way out of it. But we're running into the reality on the ground where the costs are continuing to tick up. Let me just show you here. Let's see. This is showing you the before the war. This is what the traffic.
This is what normal traffic looked like in Strait of Hormuz. These are all ships going one direction. These are all ships going the other. This is now the traffic. It's shadow of its former self.
Normally look like each one of those is a white line where ships were passing through. You see a couple of things to notice here. Well, the left one is before the war, and the last one was between April 3rd and 12th. That's why there was still some limited traffic out. So you do see a few of kind of little white hairs, if you will, around there. But notice, importantly, the routes. See that there were two routes. One is coming in and one is going out. And they're about, I think.
Yes, Iran has taken control of Strait of Hormuz, and now ships have to go through here.
2 miles wide each, because there's a lot of traffic. Around 130 tankers per day. We're moving in this path here. And you see that was because that's the deepest part of the waters where it's easy to control, and that way you don't have any collisions or anything like that. You have it controlled in. Then on the right hand side, number one, you see obviously only a fraction of the number of tankers getting in or out, but you see them one path in and out. And
this right here is making me want to go to the beach. This color, I love the color of the sea over shallow sand.
That is because there is evidence that Iran has mined that middle part there. And even when they were saying that with yesterday that the strait was going to be opened up pursuant to the United States fulfilling their obligations, they said you have to do it in coordination with our approved routes because it's still dangerous in there. So that by itself tells you that even when Iran was willing to open the thing up, that it was going to be according to their terms, and they were going to remain in control of it. It would be open, but they would not relinquish control of it. And listen, we got to understand that I've done a couple of shows here in the last yesterday specifically about a lot of the baked-in problems. We had a few days ago, we had Commodore Steve Jeremy talking about how he thinks already baked in is a recession already, and it could be.
Yes, absolutely, and a financial crisis, but that's later. The recession from this oil shock will trigger a financial crisis for sure. At this point, we're nearly 2 months of the Hormuz being closed. That affect the pressure it's going to put on the U.S. consumer in terms of higher fuel prices will cause a lot of people to default on their debt, and that will lead to a financial crisis.
Be a depression if it keeps going along. Many more people are coming to that same conclusion. In fact, Fatih Birol of the International Energy Agency says the loss of energy output in the Middle East will take about 2 years to recover. So it's going to take years to recover from all this stuff already, which means that even once all of this is solved diplomatically by whatever means, and that's assuming that it is, because who knows, it may not get solved in any time in the near term at all, at least not getting back to the way it was. But even from that point, whenever that point is, and eventually it'll arrive, that it's going to take a couple of years to replace everything. And that's as of now, folks. That's as of right now. If this war reignites next week, when this current ceasefire period runs out on Wednesday, and there is more damage to the energy infrastructure, you can just keep moving that date further out, expanding it even further.
Yep. So if oil infrastructure in the Gulf goes up in flames, all hell breaks loose in the global economy. We're fucked.
Oh, we've built in and baked in all kinds of trouble. It's going to be difficult to overcome as of now. But if we are foolish enough and turn this back into a hot war, then the damage to the global economy is going to be profound and severe. And you see the Qatari official there; they're already very worried about it. Well, it's not only that; there's confusion in the United States itself. The upper left-hand headline there is on the 17th. I'm sorry, the 5th.
Yes, in terms of unhelpful things, Bessent, Secretary of the Treasury Bessent, was just talking about reimposing sanctions on Iranian and Russian oil at the same time as the ceasefire. And yeah, that's you expect Iranians to give a big make a big concession and open the Strait of Hormuz, and at the same time you're reimposing sanctions on them. It's like telling them, well, as soon as we get oil from the other Gulf states, we can sanction you again now. Yeah, it didn't fly. So they closed Strait again, and guess what? U.S. lifts sanctions on Russian oil despite, again.
15th of April, I believe it was the 15th. So about 3 days ago, Secretary Treasurer Scott Bessent says U.S. will not be renewing waivers for Iranian and Russian oil. Darn it, we're just not going to do it. So forget, oh, wait a minute. 2 days later, U.S. lifts sanctions on Russian oil despite earlier assurances. And you see that OSINT technical there. The U.S. dropped a Friday night late notice lifting sanctions on Russian oil for another month. Comes just 2 days after Treasury Secretary Bessent said the U.S. would not return the waiver. So seriously, just what are we doing? I have mentioned already that on the one hand, we relieve sanctions on the Russian oil. We relieve sanctions on the Iranian oil in the beginning of this. Scott Bessent himself, that same guy, talks about how we're jujitsuing the Iranians. Ha ha ha. We're showing them by relieving sanctions on them and increasing the amount of oil that they can produce and increasing the amount of money they can get. That's out jujitsuing them. That by itself was weird. Now here we stay weird. What are we doing at the national level? Believe me, our adversaries and our allies alike are viewing this and they're scratching their head and they're going,
There's no plan. It's just floundering. Because here's the thing. Trump starts this war thinking it'd be over in 3 days. That's what he really honestly believes, and he was telling British Prime Minister beforehand. Then it's not over in 3 days. Strait of Hormuz is closed. Now there's a crisis in the financial markets. That's in derivatives for oil. And there's a crisis in, of course, the actual market for oil. And so, and there is Trump's political crisis. He's trapped in a war he can't escape. That's going to finish him politically. And it's those three factors that are dictating Trump's decision and his crazy behavior. He needs to manipulate the financial markets enough to keep oil prices down to prevent the financial system from imploding. He needs, at the same time, he needs to project that we're winning somehow because he needs to do that politically. And it's just been a wild ride.
seriously, WTF, man, what is going on here? How can anyone have any confidence that we're moving in a direction that's going to get this taken care of? Meanwhile, the cost is really starting to pile up. Now, that's what you need to understand. While all of this nonsense is going on and all of this...
The Hormuz closed 9.1 million barrels in shut-in production. I think the actual number is like 10 million barrels per day, and every day it's remained closed. Possibly more. And Brent has hit 147 barrels. That's in the physical market. In oil futures, no. Okay. Yeah, it was still way down because of yesterday.
Allies alike are viewing this, and there's how nonsense is going on, and all of this contradictory information. The cost doesn't stop accruing; it still keeps going up.
Strategic reserves already depleted post 2022. The buffer is gone. 147 wasn't a ceiling last time. Yeah. So again, if you're going to bomb Supreme Leader of Iran, you prepare, you warn your allies, and everyone around the world builds up a big strategic reserve of oil so they can handle a big disruption. That would give Trump so much more leverage, so much more freedom to wage the war and not have financial markets crash. But again, we thought this would be over in 3 days, so we didn't do anything like preparations in case it wasn't over in 3 days.
And here, this is Qasim Al-Ali.
Just the U.S. Strategic Reserve has 700 million barrel capacity. And when we bombed Supreme Leader, we had 400 million barrels of oil in it. In other words, 4 out of 7. We could have had 700 million barrels of oil in that strategic reserve, and we would be much better off going into this Iran war if we had an extra 300 million barrels of oil lying around. Don't you think?
Who covers global energy markets for the Middle East for MSC Finance. He put some data together, and he's shown, listen, the last time crude oil inventories were this low, and he's talking about global inventories, Brent hit 147. Right now, we're at 85, and I'll explain that in a minute. But he's talking about the physical inventories. He said in 2020 at the peak, there were 3,200 million barrels, million barrels of oil in the COVID glut. And then in 2022, when the economics from around the world after COVID started opening back up, then it went down to about 2,400. Then in 2024, it was about 2,300. And then 2026, current pass, we're now at 2,065. That's a 1,100 million barrel drain in just 6 years. And then he says, now add the Strait of Hormuz is closed. 9 million barrels a day is shut in production, meaning that what I told you yesterday, that because the storage facilities in 5 of the 6 GCC countries is full, they have to stop producing. The strategic reserves have already been depleted in various countries around the world at their post-2022. That buffer is gone, and $147 wasn't a ceiling last time. So this number right now, and
meaning another month, we might start seeing $200 barrel pretty consistently.
Let me see. I believe that the current number, this was at the end of yesterday, at the end of the closing. So this is because of President Trump's comments yesterday. The price dropped down to $85.57. A huge drop from where it was. It's like, I think 117 is the highest it was, but because of what President Trump said right before the market closed, it's like, yeah, we're good to go. That's not a problem. So now everybody believed what he said. I don't know why. I don't know why anybody believed that.
You have to understand one thing about the global oil market is demand destruction when oil prices go up doesn't happen anywhere. For example, Russia, the price of fuel in Russia will not change no matter what price of oil goes on the world stage, because Russia controls the price of oil internally and the gas price there. So their consumption is not going to change no matter how high oil prices go. All the demand destruction that comes from oil prices going up to 150, 200 happens in oil importing nations. And so they have to it's not spread evenly throughout the world. It's concentrated in places like Japan, South Korea, huge oil importers, and it's going to disproportionately impact those places.
But there's some evidence, and Larry Johnson's going to be speaking to this in just a minute when I show you what we learned this week, is that it looks like it was a market manipulation deal. Maybe that's all it was. I don't know. I don't know if there's some other things going along with it, but that is definitely one, because somebody made hundreds of millions of dollars.
The U.S. financial system is a bucket shop, ultimately, especially in terms of commodities. If you go and you put some money and you want to, I'll invest in oil, financial advisors will show you an ETF that tracks oil. And they'll buy shares of that. No money ever reaches physical oil. It's all paper. And so it's just like the bucket shops that were around the 1900s. They take your money and they throw it in the bucket. It never goes anywhere. Now, the way bucket shops continue to operate, because commodity prices go up and down, and what happens if someone makes a lot of profits in commodity at the bucket shop? How does the bucket shop pay up? Well, they pay up, the way they make their money is through market manipulation. And we've seen a lot of that in the last few weeks, right? Exactly. So the entire U.S. financial system is basically a huge bucket shop at this point. And when you have a big swing in oil prices, like this Iran war that comes out of nowhere, in order for that bucket shop to keep running, they need to do some serious and constant market manipulation, which is what we've seen over the last few weeks.
When that price dropped down. But you see, this GCC fellow here, he's talking about, look, the numbers are what they are. The last time they were this low, the price was $147 a barrel. There's also, and we talk about this too, the price that the tankers pay when they do fill up, wherever they fill up, it's in the 140 range today. I don't know. It's the whole market thing is I think flawed, and I wonder if it's even going to change at this point, because
No, it's part of the way they keep prices down. The futures market. It's the way you can have, like you said, food prices in futures market. In the paper markets, it's 83, sorry. But in the physical market, it's around 140. It's this complete disconnect. Now, during normal times, it's the same. It's very close. Like, you buy oil 1 month ahead, it should be nearly the same price as it is today. But right now, we have a broken market that's in backwardization, where the future price of oil is a lot lower than now price of oil. It's indicative of an extreme physical shortage. And it's just, it's proof of how our financial system is broken. If there really was out of control inflation, practically every investment in commodities, like ETF that tracks oil, the ETFs that tracks various food stuff, and all of that would start being in backwardization again. All of that would not go as much up as much as the physical, because the financial markets are basically disconnected from reality.
What it's projecting for the future, and understand that number there was for about a month from now. But the price it's paying today is based on all that shortage.
And at one point in time, investors will eventually lose all confidence in the paper. And then all the money, I'm talking trillions of dollars that goes into the paper stuff that Wall Street sells, paper ETFs, stocks, all of that will rush into the physical. And you'll have a surge of inflation worldwide. It like you will not believe. Gold prices explode at the same time, of course.
140 something, which is why your your gas price is high in the United States. Even though you say, oh, well, the number dropped down here, so I should go to the gas station today and it should go down because it was up $1. I should go down today. And you'll probably find that it's either not down and might be up. And that's because the price that it actually cost, that physical cost today of a barrel of oil is around 140, 144, somewhere around there. And they're saying that the fundamentals.
It has spiked all the way up to 210, I believe. One purchase of oil was made at that price during height of a particular panic.
This spin it may help somebody cheat the system and make a few $100 million, but it certainly isn't going to help you at the gas pump. And at some point, those things are going to come back into equilibrium. The actual inventories, the lack of production, and the rising of the prices is going to be a problem for you. And of course, that means petroleum products of all. Of course, you have airliners running out of jet fuel, and they're projected.
Airliners are already canceling flights because of lack of jet fuel.
To run critically low. KLM yesterday announced that they had to cancel like 100 flights because they just don't have enough jet fuel to go around. This is going to continue on. But then, of course, the other issue that's really important is the fertilizer issue.
This becomes a problem next year. This time next year, food prices are going to be stratospheric because farmers can't afford. Look at the fertilizer, basically prices doubled. And so farmers can't afford that, and so they don't use fertilizer, and their yields are lower. It means a much smaller harvest come this fall. And that plays out in months following the harvest, and prices are going to go sky high.
Fertilizer flows from the Middle East remain blocked. Using fertilizer prices have surged by 87% to $720 per ton, the highest level in nearly 3 years. Farmers should send a bill for damages to Trump and Netanyahu. And you can see the graph there, how much this has gone up just since this war started. And of course, that has profound implications for where the war is going and the cost to it. And that's why I keep saying over and over, the costs are accruing. No matter what words you hear coming out of the White House, no matter what they claim on the ground, those costs keep going up because Iran shows they have physical control of the Strait of Hormuz. And that's one of the reasons why you see here. Look, this is just last night. So the upper left-hand corner, that's from Ibrahim al-Fakar, who is the spokesperson for the IRGC. This was yesterday afternoon in Washington time, 4:57. So about 5 p.m. yesterday afternoon, this simple statement: we do not trust the enemy. Our finger is on the trigger. And then we have today, we have this, this morning, Iranian gunboats fire on a tanker in the Strait and it's back closed again. So apparently that's what he meant there. Then you see, for the first time in several days, you have the Ayatollah Khamenei is making some statements. And a couple, one on X and one on Telegram. The one on X on the left, if you can't read those words there, it says, the upward trajectory and the increase of the diverse capabilities of the Army, which safeguards the country from east to the west and from north to south, must be continued, and the necessary directives for the realization.
He's starting to post messages. He must be doing better. He was injured in the attack that killed the former supreme leader.
Of this will be issued in the near future. One wonders if he's also looking to the end of the ceasefire period. But then he says on the Telegram side, he said the Islamic Army is now courageously defending the land, water, and flag that belongs to it, just as it did in the previous two imposed wars. With its strong support from God and the people in compact, solid ranks and standing side by side with their comrades from the other armed forces, it is battling the two leading armies of disbelief and arrogance, and the Islamic Army has exposed those armies' weakness and humiliation to the world. In the same way, it's done. Its drone strikes the U.S. and Zionist murders like lightning. Its valiant Navy is also ready to inflict a new and bitter defeat on its enemies. So that's, I think, the shot across the bow. Those are definitely connected. That the Navy that Trump claims over and over had been destroyed came out and definitely put an exclamation point that the Strait of Hormuz is closed and Iran is in control of it. And they're
Trump says they have no navy, but Iranian ships just shot at tankers. Trump said Iran had no air defenses. Then we had the worst day in terms of aircraft loss since the Vietnam War, just like 10 days ago. Then Trump says Iran has no air force left. And just last week, Iran 2 fighter jet escorted a Pakistani general to land in Tehran. So everything Trump is saying is just not true, unfortunately.
Their Navy is going to be calling the shots. So now then the question is going to be, what is President Trump going to do? And that's when it starts to get messy again, because so far,
he still is not ready to accept reality. Until we start seeing Trump stops saying we've won in Iran. That's the litmus test to when we're actually getting near the end of this crisis, is when Trump stops his delusional rants about how much we've won in Iran, how much we've destroyed. That'll be sign he's recognizing reality and is finally willing to capitulate the amount needed to bring this crisis to a close. As long as he's talking about winning and how much the United States has won in this war with Iran, don't expect the crisis to end.
If I'm telling you that spin and reality have met and reality is going to win, that realization hasn't hit President Trump yet, because here's what he said last night. First of all, he said the issue was asked about this nuclear material. One of the things, remember yesterday, Professor Morandi on our show was asked about, because President Trump said, we're going to get all their nuclear material. They're going to promise never to block the Strait of Hormuz again, and they promised they would stop all their support to their proxies in the region. And we asked Professor Morandi, which you'll see here in a minute. He said, yeah, no, but President Trump then adds this last night.
If we sign the agreement, then I can give you time somewhere after the signing of the agreement. We'll go in with Iran. We'll go in with Iran, and we will take it together, and we will bring it back, 100% of it, back to the United States. If we don't do that, we will get it in a different form, in a much more unfriendly form.
So we'll get it in a much more unfriendly form. Now, just for the moment here, just imagine, let's just look at this one piece in isolation. Given what's happened here, that Iran has not succumbed after 6 weeks of intense bombardment, 13,000 targets struck in Iran. They remain in control of the Strait of Hormuz as we speak. They still have a missile force, and it still was showing that prior to the ceasefire, it was still viable and it was still hitting targets. They still have a viable drone force. They clearly still have a viable naval capacity, the one that actually works in the Strait of Hormuz. And they are definitely militarily quite viable. Now, upon what basis, put yourself in the Iranian shoes here, upon what basis are you going to agree After the last round of negotiations,
Yeah. Are you going to completely surrender to the enemy that killed your Pope, your supreme leader, when you have the upper hand in the war? Why? It's just insane.
in Islamabad did not
It's the wishful thinking on Trump's part. It's what he needs for political survival. And so that he's just blustering. He's fake it till you make it. Pretending that Iran is completely surrendered, then behind the scene, he's like, figure out some way to make that lie into a reality. But there is no way to make that lie into a reality in this case.
produce anything at all. And Vice President Vance exited by saying, this was our last final option. They didn't agree to our terms. We told them what was going to have to happen. They said no. And then we left. And then there's been basically a ceasefire ever since that time. Now then they have issued a threat that their Navy was going to win and that the Strait of Hormuz is closed. On that basis, can you come up with any rational reason why the Iranian side would go, you know what, everything we didn't agree to in the past, everything we didn't give in because of all the military pressure, here, take it. Sure. And in fact, not only
It's
can
insane.
you have it, you can come get it. We're going to allow you to come into our country and humiliate us in front of the world and all of the people in our country, and you can just walk out with it.
Nope,
Do
not
you
happening.
Do you think that's what happened? Do you think that behind the scenes, somebody from Iran actually said that to the United States?
Yeah, remember, Trump is the same one who for like more than a week pretended that there were actual negotiations happening between U.S. and Iran when there was no one speaking to each other.
Call me skeptical. Hell no. Of course they didn't. Therefore, we can only conclude that was complete fiction, totally made up. And one wonders why he may have done that. Why would you make up something like that that is illogical at face value, but will certainly never be manifested on the ground, unless, of course, he's setting it up for the last part of what he said there, which is, well, if they don't, then we'll go get it by force. One wonders if that's presaging something that's to come. That wasn't the only thing he said last night. The other thing he said was, at the end of this time, once we have a deal, are the Iranian side going to be allowed to remain in control of the Strait of Hormuz and charge a toll?
Sir, in the Strait, are there going to be restrictions and tolls managed by Iran for ships and vessels
Nope.
passing through?
No way. No
None
way.
at all?
Nope.
No restrictions?
This is a president desperately refusing to acknowledge reality.
When I say no restrictions, yeah, the restrictions, you can't do the tolls. No, they're not going to be tolls.
So
Trump's Gulf allies are absolutely against the tolls because that would come up straight out of their pocket, the majority of it. And and Trump is a very tough spot with regard to that. Is Iran is obviously, that's going to be its war reparations, the tolls, to rebuild everything U.S. bombed. And so they're definitely happening.
every Iranian leader that I've seen, whether that's Khamenei, I think that I've seen some of his earlier statements, definitely Abbas Araghchi, and several other of their state leaders have just categorically said, we will never relinquish control of the Strait of Hormuz. That's like entry point one. There is no deal that can be reached that doesn't include that. That's what they have said so far.
And they've also said that their nuclear material is just as valuable as the Iranian soil beneath their feet, and they'll never turn that over. They've also said that. So, yeah, we're heading back to war. More bombing next week.
They put an exclamation point on that today. So for President Trump to just say no way, then he is making irreconcilable statements that the two sides just won't compromise on, because they're categorical here, he's categorical here. So where is there any hope that this ceasefire leads to anything, or that if there are...
Exactly. The Trump side over here needs to go over here. Iran might be willing to compromise a little bit over here, but it's whatever terms of this is going to be enough in Iranians' favor so that the entire world sees this as a loss for Trump. And that's why Trump needs to stop talking about how we won in Iran, because that's recognition that he's beginning to accept reality. and that can lead to actually a settlement of this crisis.
talks that are announced later tonight. What chance do they have when that's again your entry points? Remember, I mentioned this last time before the Islamabad comments. I said that the two sides were already camped out so far apart that there's virtually no chance that they're going to come together, and that's how it worked out. I made an analogy to the May 2025 first
Yeah, I said it too. 0% chance for the negotiations to be successful. And I was right.
time talks between the Russians and the Ukraine side. They both entered with very hardcore positions that were irreconcilable. That I think they ended up having 3 rounds, if I'm not mistaken. They left on the third one the same as they before the first one, and to where they are to this day. Those same dynamics are seeming to be at play here. Therefore, one wonders what's going to happen when this time runs out, and President Trump addressed that too.
If you don't have a deal by Wednesday when the ceasefire ends, will you extend the ceasefire or will
I
you
don't
start
know.
after
Maybe
this
not.
ends? Yeah.
Maybe I won't extend it.
Okay.
But the blockade is going to remain. But maybe I won't extend it.
If the blockade is going to remain, the Strait of Hormuz is going to remain closed.
So you have a blockade, and unfortunately, we'll have to start dropping bombs again.
So maybe that's been the whole point of all this, and the previous 2 comments was, well, if we don't have a deal, and this
And as soon as the bombs start dropping again, they'll be bombing in Lebanon too.
ceasefire time comes to an expiration next Tuesday at midnight, I think, and so Wednesday morning, guess we may have to stop dropping some bombs again.
That's why Netanyahu, I think, finally listened to or threw Trump a bone and stopped bombing Lebanon, is because he's certain that these ceasefire is going to collapse. So it means he's just agreed to stop bombing Lebanon for a few days.
So when you have set conditions, 2 of which were ironclad, the Iranian side says categorically they will not be willing to do, and they certainly aren't going to do it in between now and Tuesday, even if there are some announcements of meetings. And in fact, CNN was reporting late last night, I saw that there could be a meeting tomorrow in Islamabad on Monday. We'll see if that comes to pass. Wouldn't surprise me if it does. I hope that it does. It's reasonable that it will. But it's also reasonable, and unless President Trump changes his position pretty strongly, the Iranian side, with their action today, with Khamenei's statement about that the Navy will win, with these symbolic strikes on these tankers, if that happened, and their definite defiance, the Strait is closed, they're not going to give in on anything.
Good day.
They're talking. They know
Today-
that there's the likelihood or the possibility of talks tomorrow are coming in, but they're clearly saying we're over here. And Trump then just staked out last night and again today at the Oval Office that he still is acting like he's in the driver's seat and that he has all the cards, which he said before. And the Iranian side just threw down a couple of cards on the table and says, match it. President Trump has been unable, through diplomacy, through twisting things around, through words, through truth socials, every other way, from the 28th of February all the way through to this moment as we're speaking, the Strait is in Iranian hands. He has not been able to compel them to change it by any means. Why do you think he's going to be able to do it now? Why would resuming the war later on, when we already have burned through so much of our stockpiles of interceptor missiles?
No, the U.S. is in a losing position. It's still in a losing position. It was in a losing position from the moment Trump decided to bomb Iran's supreme leader. There's no great way out.
Offensive missiles, all kinds of other weapon systems, lost a bunch of people, lost a bunch of bases. The damage to the facilities of our allies has been damaged that it's going to take a couple of years to even get back once this is over. Why would you think that when all of that failed, that resuming the conflict with less stocks, with
He doesn't think that. It's just he's doing what he needs to for political survival. He's not willing to recognize that he's lost and his presidency is basically over. Trump refused to admit that, so he's living in fantasy land. And rather than compromise and basically capitulate to Iran, which is what's needed to end this conflict, he is going to start bombing again, because at least then he can continue pretending that we've won and that we're winning and that we're winning so bigly.
with already greater damage going in, and that clock keeping ticking on the cost that's piling up. Why do you think that's going to work? I hope that he doesn't. I hope that he recognizes that at some point, and we move on to getting a chance to get this solved. It's just, man, he's going to, somebody, the Iranians or President Trump, is to get this over with and to have the war not resume next week, or at the end, maybe they'll extend it. I hope that happens too. Every day gives us a chance and a little bit of oxygen.
As long as the Strait of Hormuz remain closed, it doesn't matter if it's extended or not. Iran's winning every day.
And to keep alive the hopes that somebody finally acknowledges reality and gives in. And of course, that's almost certainly going to be the United States, because we started this war. Therefore, the Iranian side would be foolish to give into it and believe something that we said, given the history.
Yep. Well, that's basically the situation in Iran. There isn't really that much more new talk about the Iran situation. We're still in this limbo of the ceasefire. Strait of Hormuz are closed. No real prospects of it opening again. And I think that might do it for my Iran section for today. Like and subscribe, come watch on Kick or Twitch, and I'll see you next video. Bye.